Hello guys, let's talk about React Use Context today. So React Use Context is a React hook that allows you share value between multiple nested levels of components without passing props through each level. I already have a React application set up here with three components, component C, component B, and component A. I nested component B and C inside component A, and I nested component C inside component B. And on the very top part of my component 3 here, which is component A, I have a state called name that holds a value of John. If I go in my component A and render it in a paragraph tag, put some JSX there, and say welcome. Now if I save on my screen here, I have welcome John. So if I want now to pass this same state called name into component C, there's no way I can directly pass it to component C from here because I have component C nested inside component B, which means I'll literally have to pass it as props through component B. So let's do that by passing name equal to name. And then we'll go to our component B and pass it as prop. Then with that now, we now have access to take it to component C. We'll call this name equals, and we say this is props.name. And then we can go into our component C right now and have access to it by passing props. And then we already have a paragraph tag here. Let's render that. Hi. And then we'll call this props.name. And now if I save, I have hi, John. For small applications like this, it works. But if the level of nested components were up to 10, trust me, if you want to go through the route of passing props through every one of these components, your code will look messy, number one. And if any of these components breaks or have a bug, it literally means the chain of props will also break, and that will cause a lot of issues in your application. Now, that is the problem that useContext solves. We are going to do the same thing again, but using useContext now. So I'm just going to take out all these props that I added here. We are just going to take it off because now we'll pass the same prop all the way down to component C, but we'll pass the same data all the way down to component C without passing it as props using useContext. All right, let me just clear this. Okay, this can stay because this is on the first level. So welcome, John. Now to use the useContext API from React, you have to import it. And on the provider component, which is the very top component of the component tree that is providing the data you want to share to the other components, okay? You have to create a context there that holds that data. So let's import create context from React. And let's create a context. So export const, let's call it name context. Okay, that will be equal to create context. And then what you want to do is provide a provider that wraps all the components that you want to share that data with. So I'll go to my component B, which holds component C, and name context, wrap it with name context. Let's put this inside here, but we'll have to call it dot provider. Okay, dot provider, and then we'll provide a value, and this value would be any value that you want to share across every other component. In our case, it's name that we are sharing. And in your consumer component here, which is component C that you want to use that value, you have to import useContext from React. Don't forget, we created a context here that we exported also called name context. So we also have to import that, import name context also from component A. In our components here, we can now say const name will be equal to useContext that is taken in name context. So once you do this, we can now come back to our paragraph and write welcome John. Let's write hello name. If I save, I see hello John. We didn't do any prop drilling on component B because we already created a context here that would provide that value to any sub component that is inside component B. I want to make something very clear on this. If any component that is not inside this provider component here would not have access to this data. So if I have another component, for example, let's duplicate this component B and put it outside here, and we save. So we have another component B outside here that has another component C also. You see, we are having hello undefined because the undefined here meaning the component can't find name. It can't find it, it is undefined. So whatever you're doing, it has to be inside this provider here. We're able to use the value name without prop drilling through component B to component C. Now, same thing if I want to use it in component B, all I just need to do also is import. Let me copy from here because I don't want to start typing the code again. And then create context, copy from here, component B, but this should be inside here. And now I can come here and maybe add my paragraph tag, embed some JavaScript. Instead of hello this time, let's do from name. So if I save now, you see we have welcome John, from John, and hello John. Now, whatever component that is inside this provider component, which is component A, whatever component that is a child component of component A, and it's inside this provider here, has access to this data, okay, without prop drilling. All you have to do is use the useContext API, and you have, if I go to my component A now and change this from John to, let's use David, and if I save, all the components will change to David. All right, guys, that's it for the useContext soup. Let me know if you don't understand any part of this tutorial or want me to break down any part of this tutorial further, and I will try my best to make sure I make that happen for you. Hit the subscribe button for me, please, so I can keep creating tutorials like this for you. Bye, guys, and see you next time.